iteration is key, and speed of iteration is even more important, right? And the best way to do that is get critical feedback, whether it be internal or externally, right? So constantly we're shipping new feature, constantly we're talking to more people in the market, and we're just getting feedback on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Because to be honest, 90% of the time our ideas are bad, right? It's like, as much as I'd like to say we're better than that, it's just the truth.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership skills in the electronics manufacturing industry? Join Sannah Vinding on a transformative journey as she unlocks the key to exceptional leadership in this dynamic field. Discover invaluable strategies, emerging trends, and best practices through expert perspectives and insightful interviews. This podcast is your ultimate resource for gaining a competitive edge, staying ahead of the curve, and shaping the future. Tune in now and unlock the secrets to leadership success in the world of electronics manufacturing.
Welcome to Mind Innovation Manufacturing Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and thank you so much for listening in today. I want to introduce today's guest, Zachary Feuerstein. Zachary is the founder and CEO of Breadboard, a company that's automating electronics procurement. With a software engineering background, he's a natural leader who excels in product development, design, commercial strategy, and also technical implementations. So welcome, Zachary, to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Always great to speak.
Yeah. So let's jump in, right? Electronics industry is just huge. So I want to know how, your perspective on how has the electronic industry changed since you started working at Breadboard?
Yeah, so when we started Breadboard just about a year and a half ago, we were really at like the peak of the supply chain crisis, right? Everybody was just trying to constantly source components and being told week and week over week, sorry, it's going to be another 6 months, right? And hair on fire type event. And really, over the last year and a half, we've started to see things stabilize, right? It's no longer every part's impossible to find, but now how do we more strategically think about sourcing and think about not just in time, but also planning, but also thinking about how do we look ahead to say, well, what's the next thing that could happen, and how are we better prepared this time than we were the time before?
I think we all have to learn, right? There will be disruptions, right? We're not going to have a year where nothing is going to happen. So you have to have a strategy and a plan in place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like in any industry. I think in this one, it's just super complex. So the level of effort that goes in, I think sometimes it's harder than some of the other ones that we've seen.
Yeah. So right now, what are some of the key challenges that electronics manufacturers are facing?
Yeah, so the biggest ones that we see is actually around labor, right? We're in this market now where as much as I think we all want it to be, and we know it's super important in electronics manufacturing, it's not necessarily the sexiest industry to new incomers, right? I think the latest study I read is the average age in this industry is like 58 years old or something like that. So this industry is starting to, think about retirement and moving on to the next thing. But the younger generation, right, really hasn't come into play. And I think the industry has to think about that in two different ways. One is, how do you make the industry more attractive? It's incredibly interesting and intricate. And I think if people looked at it like they look at, finance sometimes or software even like we're in, which sometimes has that hot name to it, I think there would be a lot of interest. But I think there's also digital transformation, right? Not only does that make it more attractive to the younger generation, but it also makes it that you can do more with less, right? And it's not as a big a deal if for 3 months you can't hire that person when somebody leaves, because you have the tooling around you to support your business effectively.
Yeah. And what about efficiency, right? That I'm sure that's also, right? That you don't need to spend, maybe it's 5 hours that you did before, but now you have all these smarter tools that can go in and support you and being faster on it.
Exactly. And efficiency comes in multiple ways, right? There's speed of efficiency and using less labor, But
Yeah.
then also with high inflation now, it's how do you be efficient with your spend, right? How are you consolidating that effectively, making sure you're not overpaying in order to run a profitable business, which is, not super easy in 2024.
So what are some of the, with your software, right? What are some of the benefit that you've seen or you hear, when you're talking to some of your clients or your customers when they're coming back to you? What are some of the feedback you're
Yeah.
getting?
So the biggest thing that we've specialized is making that process of quoting and procuring electronics components much easier than it's been historically. This industry, the data is messy, right? You're
Yeah.
working, whether you're a contract manufacturer or an OEM, you have data coming from different systems, whether that's like your bill of materials, whether that's supplier RFQs, whether that be your purchase orders. You get emails, you have PDFs, you have Excel files, you have these disparate, technology systems like your ERP and your MES. And what we wanted to do is take a system that can take the data from any of those formats, get that into our platform in just a couple of seconds, and then automate connecting you to all of the suppliers in the market so that you can get the live information about who to buy from, at what price, and everything in between. And really the value we've been seeing there for our customer base and what they're really excited about is taking a process that normally would have taken 8, 12, 15 minute hours
Yeah.
down to 15, 20 minutes. And while doing that, getting the analytics around the pricing and availability and making better decisions as a business. So it's been fun. We're a new company, so we're still learning things every single day, and hopefully we'll continue to do that forever. But it's been a lot of fun and getting great feedback so far.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to touch a little bit on, so design cycle, right, is long. It can be
Yeah.
from 6 months to 5 years. What about the buying cycle? Because that's the one you're touching here, right? What have
Yeah.
that changed over the last couple of years?
Definitely. I think, it depends on the use case, right? It's very different if you're buying for prototypes, right? You're, let's say buying 5, 10, 15 units, right? Versus you have a recurring product and a sales process, and you're buying components on a, quarterly or monthly basis based on your sales, your inventory, and the market data. Um, and what we've really seen, and not necessarily where it's been and where it is today, but where it's going is we need to help make better demand forecasting. How
Yeah.
do we help the upstream manufacturers know what demand is going to look like 5 years down the line so that they can build the facilities and the manufacturing plants to support that? And a lot of the work we're doing here at Breadboard is to say, hey, let's solve the transactional workflow of buying and purchasing in the immediate and make that a lot easier, but then layer on financial tools eventually with a futures exchange actually to be able to get that demand forecasting long term,
Yeah.
and therefore make a much more stable supply chain so that when the next crisis happens, there's not a risk of huge shortage of supply.
So I want to know more a little bit about you because you don't have always you're not always been in the electronic industry, right? You like from the pharmaceutical or the medical side. So tell me how did you land in the electronics industry?
Yeah, so I guess going all the way back, I've always loved electronics. My father is an engineer. We grew up like taking apart like the broken TV in our house and trying to fix it, doing wiring through the wall. So I've always been passionate for it, and I actually got my degree in electrical and computer engineering.
Oh,
Um, but I got scared when I graduated. Manufacturing is hard. Design, as you said, like the life cycle of it can be really long.
yeah,
And I saw software out there. It was, let's say the easy way out, right? In a way. But, as in life, it always brings you back to the things that you really should be doing. So, worked in software, built some companies in the space, most recently in life sciences and medical. And what drove me back here was as a consumer, right? I
yeah,
was interested in buying a bunch of different products, from game systems to a new refrigerator. And I just kept on being told, sorry, you're going to have to wait 6 months to get this, specific product. And I dove back in to see what was going wrong and see if I could help fix it. So
yeah.
it's been a wild ride the last 1.5 years, and hopefully this is where I can stay for the rest of my career.
Oh, that's no, that's interesting. And it's good that you've been, at that table, right? As the consumer, or you're sitting around, so you know the experience, and then you can actually add some of that in to this kind of software. What about your team? How big is your team, and how do you stay connected with like lessons learned and when you do iterations? I want to go a little bit deeper in here. So how big is your team?
Yeah, we're a team of 10. We're all here in New York City.
Yeah,
Iteration is key, and speed of iteration is even more important,
yeah,
right? And the best way to do that is get critical feedback, whether it be internal or externally, right? So constantly we're shipping new feature, constantly we're talking to more people in the market, and
yeah,
we're just getting feedback on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Because to be honest, 90% of the time our ideas are bad, right? It's like, as much as I'd like to say we're better than that, it's just the truth. But if you quickly, talk to people about those ideas and really try to say, is this actually solving your problem, and get feedback on it,
yeah,
whether again that's like a client, a prospect, a friend, or other teammates, right, on the team when it's regarding an internal process, you quickly adjust and pivot. And that's the beauty of being at a small company is,
yeah.
one week we could be doing one thing, and then the next week we realize, hey, that wasn't the right thing, and we adjust, and we move forward.
Yeah, I'm always saying if you're like a big, big organization, right? It's like a container ship. Takes some time to turn.
Exactly, right? You change 4 degrees over the course of a year. Uh,
Yeah, and then get back on track. No. So how do you stay updated with all the industry news and what's happening, and how do you share that with your team? Because I'm sure that's really important, right? That you're staying on top of the game here.
yeah, it's critical, and it's not easy, right? It's like, everybody's trying to like get the news and the information and then do their day job, right? Which is
Yeah,
like, running whatever they're doing. um I try to just get it from as many sources as possible, right? Whether it's podcasts like this, right, and to following LinkedIn groups that are super helpful, or media websites in the space. I try to do that, and
yeah,
then I'll take the nuggets out of there, and we meet our team on a daily basis, right? And either we'll share, those things directly, like in a Slack channel, an interesting article or something to read, or I can take that and turn into something helpful. Try to, reconsolidate that, or whatever the right word is for that, and present it. But the truth is, it's not just me, right? Like, the beauty of having a team is the data
yeah,
is coming from all these different places, and
yeah.
we get to share it with each other, which is super fun. Like, I love waking up every morning and hanging out with my whole team, and building new things and learning new things.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I like that, I'm sure with your passion as right? That will reflect into the team as well if you have hired as well. That everybody hopefully has that kind of the same spirit to just go for the goals, right? Make the enhancement and then share and have the passion for the whole industry.
Yeah, I think like hiring people that are smarter and more passionate than even you is critical. Like,
Yeah,
if I'm not, the rule we use internally when we're thinking about like hiring somebody is not, are they good for the job? Do we think they have the right qualifications? But are we excited
yeah,
about this person? Like, do we think this person is gonna like call us out on our BS, are gonna push us further?
yeah,
And if that's the case, then it's the right hire.
yeah.
um, because if we treat ourselves as the limit, we can only go that high, right? So it's
Yeah.
like we should constantly try to be getting better and better people around us.
Yeah, definitely. And you will also learn, right? And the whole critical thinking. What about other skill set? Now that we are talking about skill set, what other
Yeah.
skills are important?
I think the biggest skill set that I've seen valuable is people that can connect the dots from multiple skill sets, right? I think there are a lot of people who are really good at one thing, right? And you can make a great living about really good at one thing, right?
Yeah,
Um, the people who take it to the next level are able to be good at multiple things, or decent at multiple things, and connect the dots between them, right? So imagine you had a great salesperson, right? And they're incredibly good at telling a story, right, and understanding pain points and relaying, right, what information, right, and value they can bring to a business or to an individual person. And then you have another person, right, who's an incredible engineer, right, who can build out different systems and tools, and architect, right, fantastic solutions.
Yeah.
Individually, they're great, but imagine you had somebody who can, on the fly, right, through a sales call, right, for example, understand that problem and then figure out the solution live there, right? Like that's the difference maker. And I think you try to find multiple like Venn diagrams of people, who can all overlap in that way. And I think that's something that I've found it's hard to find, but when you find it, it's like never let go.
Yeah. No, that's no, definitely, definitely. Yeah, no, I only agree with you. Having, connecting the dots. It's like it's not that it's a gray zone, but the overlapping, right, just help building a better team. And it also, if there should be any gaps, right, you're just much better in that situation. If it's for the company. What about? I want to go back to the buying cycle because
Yeah.
I want to talk about your buying cycle, right? When you talk to customers. So not that you have to tell any secrets, but I just want to know you can say shorter or long, right? On the buying cycle. But I want to touch on the whole building the relationship with your newer customer coming in. What kind of advice can you give on like if there's a long buying cycle and then how do you build this relationship?
Yeah, so our buying cycle completely ranges, right? We have people onboarded and signed up within 24 hours of first reaching out to us if they have like a straightforward workflow and they just want to move on and into it. And then we have like multi-month life cycles for buying cycles for like large enterprises who need a ton of integrations and support and around that. Um, Either way, though, I think good like client and sales relationships are about teaching and like consulting, right? Almost where it's saying like, I'm going to educate you on, right, the market and then also what we do, and then help you decide for yourself, is this something that can help me or not, right? That's the best way that we've seen to be really helpful and giving people the tools to make that decision, right? If it's not a good ROI, for example, to use us or any software, it's actually not good for the business to sell you that because you're not going to renew or you're going to have a bad experience. So for us, we think about it as that education and that consulting, and that leads then to good clients afterwards. So a lot of it is saying, hey, here's how we solve the problem. Here's how other people solve the problems. We're not the only people in this industry. Here's where we think we can help you if you have these problems. Let's investigate what you're already doing well versus areas you're trying to improve, and then see if there's a mutual fit.
Yeah. No, it's good, and I'm sure as well with some of your customers, right? Because that's what I can see if you just look into other industries, right? Is that when somebody actually comes to you and saying, "Now I'm ready to talk," they've already done a lot of the pre-work, right? So it's not that you have to educate them on everything. So I'm sure that's like one bucket of customers, but I'm sure you also have customers where you're reaching out to them, and then you have to educate them and lift them really quickly to see, if you want to keep them in your funnel or not.
Exactly. And, as a younger company, not that many people know about us, which is totally fine. Right. And there's, I would call it, 60-40-70-30, right, of us reaching out, right, versus that inbound. But yeah, it's definitely a different process. And we're just trying to make sure people even know we exist so that if we can help them, we're available for that. For them.
Yeah, that's good. Um, Back to company culture, because I think the whole communication and company culture is so important. It's a little bit the secrets, right, of a company if it's really good. I think how everybody works together. So beside of how you're learning and you're sharing and your passion, right? Because I heard that from the whole organization. Do you have other company culture initiatives that you do, like outside of getting together or anything else where you can say, hey, this actually changed the way how we're actually working together? Is there anything reflecting you can share?
Yeah, I think there are a few pieces to it. So one is like culture is a living organism, right? It's like it's ever
Yeah,
changing and it's dynamic, and you have to constantly feed it, right?
yeah,
To make it a healthy and awesome thing. I'll give you one example of something that we do regularly, and then another thing of more of a like mission or driven thing that we push for, right? And we try to make each other better through. So in terms of like processes, we try to make sure that there's transparency across the business so that people can have that passion because they understand what the impact they're going to have. So for example, we just did our yearly planning. We went off site. We spent, a day fully going through everything that we want to do collaboratively as a company, from our commercial goals to our engineering goals to our product goals to our customer goals, right? Everything there and came together. And we're completely transparent with the business, right? Everything from like cash in the bank to like where we need to be in terms of right our success, where we're struggling, right? All those different areas. And I think
yeah,
that's something that breeds that passion you were talking about because people feel like they have some stake in this, right? Like they understand where their impact is. So that's on like the something we do, and then we regularly bi-weekly meet to see how we're tracking against those goals as an entire business, as like an all hands. That's like on the like how we feed it, right?
yeah,
One of the things though that I think um, I've taken from other businesses, and I think it's been really successful. And something we push for here at Breadboard is something called like the beautiful polished rocks theory. So the idea behind it is the best things, right? The most beautiful things come out of friction, right? You take two pieces of rocks together, you rub them together, and it becomes this beautiful smooth stone. And the analogy there is, we're all going to have different viewpoints and disagreements, let's say, on different items. And that's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing to be passionate and disagree about a specific topic, as long as you know it's about the topic and not the people. And
yeah,
that's working well when two people can be in a heated disagreement and then say, "Hey, want to go grab a beer right afterwards, or
yeah.
dinner, or whatever it is." And those are some of the things that I think
That's
about
yeah.
in
It's like
terms of
not taking it personal, right? It is the technical part of it. I like that.
exactly.
Yeah, I really like that. I also, the whole always if you're grabbing that beer, right, or you have lunch or you have dinner or something, it always build a little bit deeper on your relationship with your colleagues, and makes it easier next time if you don't see them every day, if you're remote or hybrid, right? It just helps you build, and work closely,
Yeah,
and
camaraderie is super
yeah,
key.
yeah. Okay. So, want to talk about advices here. So I have two questions. So let's take one of them. So if you have like a newcomer that's coming into the industry and you have a lot here of reflection, what kind of advice would you give somebody new coming into the industry?
Don't be afraid to ask. I think that's something that people don't realize is like you're an email or a LinkedIn message or a phone call away from talking to pretty much anybody in this world. There are very, very, very few people who don't actually monitor their own email inbox or their phone. So find people that you think are interesting, that you want to emulate, that you want to be one day, and just reach out. You might not get a response the first time. You might not even get a response at all. But most people, if you do that enough, you're going to get in touch with some people you would have never even thought possible. And that will open up so many doors because people then appreciate that you actually care and want to learn about these things.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't offer you an opportunity even themselves, but they might connect you to the right parties and get you in touch with the people. So no matter who it is, like you should reach out, you should just try. And that will take you like 95% of the way there in a lot of scenarios.
I like that. Okay. I really like that 'cause, ask, right? It's just, if you don't, nothing happens. If you ask, it can go either way, right? And a lot of the ways is actually you will have that conversation, or you will actually expand your network. So that's a really good advice. Other advice, if you have to, look at yourself and give yourself an advice like 10 years ago, what would that have been?
Yeah. The biggest advice I think I would tell myself is it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to fail. as long as you're learning from those things, and you're trying to do better every day. I think, especially when I was early in my career, I was just so afraid of like getting in trouble, right? I think in school, right, like you're taught to follow the rules, to stay in your lane, to do all these things. And like failing's a bad thing, right? Like you get a low grade on a test, that's a bad thing. The world doesn't work that way,
No.
right? So, honestly, like as I said, trying 95% of the battle, 95% of the battle. Like, do things, try it. You're gonna make mistakes. Keep trying. Ask for help, and you're gonna be way farther than most people because
Yeah.
at least you put your foot out there and you're learning from what you did wrong the time before.
I like that. Yeah, and don't be shy, right? Even
Yeah.
though if you actually are having a few mistakes or learnings on the way, we all do every week. Come on, let's just be honest about
Yes. 100%. I'm failing every day.
it. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important as well to share these learnings of saying, hey, I did this, right? I learned out that this was not the best way of doing it, right? Or we changed we pivot, right? Now that is this way. I
Exactly.
think sharing your learning on the way as well is also important. And back to the whole company culture, right? We're doing full circle here.
Yeah.
No, um,
It all relates.
yeah. So, if some of the listener wants to connect with you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way is you can go to our website, breadboard.com, and you can either get a call with us directly through there, or if you want to reach out to me personally for whatever reason, you can reach me at Zachary@breadboard.com, and we'd be happy to talk to you, whether it's personal, business, or anything else.
Nice. Okay, awesome. And I'll make sure, to put these links in the show notes and also on the website episode page that you can find on mindinnovation.com. So, Zachary, I think this was great. We went around, talking about a lot the digitalization, right? And then we always, I think, not always, but, ending around the whole company culture. And I always love the advice that we're getting from some of all the guests. And I love your advice today. Just don't be afraid of asking, especially if you're new in this industry. And we all need new people, right? Or younger people, younger
100%.
talent, or highly talented people to come into this industry. So so please join. No, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful talking to you, and I love listening to the podcast and getting all the advice from everybody else. So it's fun to be on here, and hopefully we'll be speaking soon.
Oh, we will.
100%.
If you like Mind Innovation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcast. You can follow Sannah Vinding and Mind Innovation on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And make sure to check out mindinnovation.com. Stay curious and keep learning. See you next time.